Howdy folks, welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory and today is Monday, October the 3rd, and I have the very distinct honor and great pleasure of welcoming to the show for the first time the President and CEO of Advantage Lithium, Mr. David Sidoo, and he leads an award-winning mining company for a newly formed company, Advantage Lithium, which trades here in the U.S. under the symbol AVLIF and in Canada under AAL. I wanted to get him on our show because I've seen a few articles on Zero Hedge and SHTF Plan about the electric car boom facing a major headwind when it comes to the supplies for lithium. Elon Musk has stated that Tesla will soon consume all the annual lithium supply. And Warren Buffett, his electric car company, BYD, has stated the exact same thing. So all these electric vehicle companies and large tech giants fighting over supply, I wanted to learn where our audience can take advantage. David and his team are responsible for some of the biggest gains in the resource sector and are known to all the big insiders like Eric Sprott and Rick Rule. David, thank you for being on the Daily Coin.
Rory, thanks a lot for having me on. I'm really excited about being on your program, and I've listened to a lot of your other shows, and they're quite informative for your audience. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And just before we started the show, we were talking about management. We were talking about football and coaches and how important management is to the overall success, whether it's a football team or whether it's a company. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's all driven by the management. And if you would, David, give us a little bit of your background as far as your management and who you've been with and what you bring to the table.
Sure, I've been in the brokerage business for many years. I graduated from the University of British Columbia here with a business degree, education in business, and went on to play 6 years in the Canadian Football League professional football. And then I was a broker for 14 years at Yorkton Securities. I worked alongside Frank Justra, Bob Cross, and Trevor Wilson in the Natural Resource Group. We put many resource companies together, some of which you're probably still aware of, and some of your listeners and would be aware of, Diamond Fields and companies like that, and brought them to the marketplace. And so we were quite involved in the resource sector. Then I retired from the brokerage industry in 2000 and formed a few of my own companies. I founded them from the inception, built the boards, the assets, and raised the capital. And one of them was Gasco Energy. It was a Powder River Basin play in the U.S., and we raised $20 million for Gasco Energy, around $1 a share with Canaccord. Stock went as high as $8. I believe we're listed on NASDAQ at this point, then Amex, the new NYMEX market. And I formed a company called American Oil and Gas from inception in 2007. Sold that to Hess in 2010, late 2010, for $630 million in all-stock transaction. And I put that company together with the management team and assets right from inception as well. And now I'm working on a lithium project. I've got a great management team, putting together the assets, management team, raising the capital. And if it isn't broke, I'm not going to fix it. I've had 2 or 3 very good successes over the last 15 years. And that's how long it takes, Rory, to build a solid company. If you're serious about an industry, it takes 5 to 6 years to build a solid company. You go through ups and downs, but you stick with it. And when you have a good team around you, I think that's the most important thing. And that's a bit of my history there in Coles Notes version.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I mean, if you've got the eye of people like Eric Sprott and Rick Rule, that speaks in volume for me and for my audience as well. And David, if you look at a chart of lithium supply versus demand, it clearly shows that 2016 is the year where essentially supply deficits will explode going forward. And my question is this: how long will this take to correct itself? Because I don't see the demand for electric vehicles slowing down one bit as the batteries are only getting better and both the government and the markets are in favor of alternative type energy?
I think that's a great question, Rory. I really don't think that anyone can really seriously predict the what's going to happen with the price of lithium. All I can tell you is the most important growth for lithium in the future, from what I can see, will be for battery applications, specifically electronic vehicles. There's no denying lithium's importance will increase moving forward due to the expected increase in electric vehicles. But one of the things that people don't understand is there's a drastic drop in the cost of lithium-ion batteries, and this is very bullish for the future application of lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. And also, if you look at energy storage, it's a rapidly growing market. Tesla was just announced last week that it won an enormous contract to help the power grids in California using power packs with tens of millions of dollars in support. Right now, if you look at lithium-ion costs have plummeted from over $1,400 per kilowatt in 2010 to little less than $400 per kilowatt currently, for 71% decrease in costs over 6 years. And with new technological advancements, I think the cost is even going to drop even more. And falling lithium battery costs, it's something that people aren't really watching right now, but it's significant. And when that happens and technological advancement happens, people are going to continue to advance lithium into their different type of situations. You look at the power grids and electronic vehicles. Right now, year to date for 2016, Rory, nearly 20% more electric vehicles have been sold in the United States that were sold during the same period last year. And I think that demand is just going to only increase. As far as pricing, that's going to be a tough one to try and gauge. It's hard to say when a resource is tied to something as fast as moving as the battery and energy storage markets. And it's not easy to produce lithium. So it's going to be difficult to see any kind of price decrease in the short term.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I mean, because right now lithium is up big. I mean, and it seems that there are a lot of lithium stocks out there, but only a handful of producers. And in fact, only one producer in the U.S., and it's not even a mining stock, it's a chemical company. I mean, what is the state of the lithium market and the opportunity for investors, as well as what are some of the dangers?
Well, you've got a lithium, let's just call a kettle black right now. We've got a lithium bull market right now that we're in. And there are a lot of companies that are starting to float out there. And the big four that are out there right now are SQM, Albemarle, FMC, and Tiakina. They control about 82% of the global lithium production in the world. The reality is that most of the smaller companies won't even make it past due diligence and into any type of production. And when you're looking at lithium players, you got to consider these key points: the team track record, the quality of assets, the strategy and activity. And more importantly, if you got any technical people that are involved that listen to your show, if you speculate in lithium, you want high grade, large, low impurity, and low cost production. So the four key factors for your listeners and investors to focus on when they're speculating for lithium and they're looking for companies is the grade, the size of the resource, the impurity levels, and the cost of production. And I wouldn't even bother with low-grade hard rock lithium deposits. Hard rock lithium deposits, in almost all cases, are undeveloped projects and are very high-cost producers. So those I wouldn't even look at right now. And if you look at those four factors that I mentioned right off the top, your team track record, the quality of assets, and the strategy and activity, where you're doing your exploration, and whether you're going to come to fruition in terms of having production at some point, those are the key areas to look at. Now, in my history in the industry, I look at people that come in and they're called Johnny-come-latelys or rounders. And rounders come in when markets are hot and all they're doing is speculating and promoting. So your listeners should be careful of those types of people. When uranium was hot in the early 2006, there were over 1,000 exploration companies. When rare metals were hot in 2010, They were around in 2011. You had another 500 companies floating. When graphite was hot in 2011, they were all around. And they're doing the same for lithium right now. There's literally hundreds of lithium exploration companies that are public and private. So I would be aware of just people that are out there just promoting. I would look at the quality of the people. Have they built assets before? Have they raised capital? Have they dealt with majors? And have they built companies? And this takes time. It takes, as I said when we were discussing prior to my interview, it takes 4 to 5 to 6 years to develop these companies. And if your shareholders are patient with good management, they'll do well.
Yes, David. I mean, as far as I interview a lot of mining executives, and the one thing that I have found to hold true across the board is that just like we have already discussed before, it's all about the management. What do they know? What do they bring to the table? And if you're not looking at those folks that are running the show, then your risk go way, way up. And as far as Advantage Lithium, never seen anything like this company. So, I mean, what can new investors in this market expect from a potential partnership with you and with Advantage Lithium?
Well, the first thing they can look at is the team. I told you a little bit about myself. We've got a star geologist in Ross McElroy, Rory, that's on our board, and it heads up our geological team. If your listeners don't know who Ross is, Ross has had 2 major discoveries in the last 3 years. He was the PDAC Bill Dennis Award winner for exploration success. It's like winning the best director at the Oscars. And he was Northern Miners Mining Person of the Year. He's very highly respected by people like Eric Spott and Rick Rule. One of my other directors and former co-chairman is Dev Randawa. Dev has floated 3 successful uranium companies. He's won an award as Finance Monthly's Deal Maker of the Year, the Northern Mining Person of the Year. Dev's raised over $220 million in his last few deals, and in the last 4.5, 5 years when no one cared about lithium. What investors can expect from us is growth by acquisition and by the drill bit, and we're going to be straight up. We're probably the fastest company that's going to drill in Nevada. We've got some fantastic targets there that Ross and our rest of our technical team like. So we're going to look at putting some drill bits in the ground and developing value. We have an international diversified asset base, all in excellent mining jurisdictions with infrastructure, which is very important. We're aiming for near-term production in Nevada, Rory. We're drilling in the next couple of weeks in Clayton Valley, right next to North America's only producing lithium operation. Some of your listeners can go to our website and take a look at our deck there, our presentation, and see where we're drilling. We've got the water rights, which are very significant. This gives Advantage Lithium a competitive advantage in that we're within 110 meters of a lithium brine pumping wells, and we've got the water rights there. So if we do get to production, we can actually produce lithium because we have the rights to the water. We've picked up Advanced Project in Argentina. Argentina's probably considered, the lithium triangle of the world. 70% of the world's lithium comes from Argentina. We're right next to strategic asset that is held by a company called Orocobre. It's a $750 million market cap company. Orocobre's huge shallow resource is right next to the Stella Maris property that we picked up in Argentina. We've also got a grassroots project that we picked up in Mexico. It's an unexplored region, but that's Ross McElroy's background. Ross has been very successful in exploring in underexplored regions and areas where the geography and geology looks good. And Ross and Doug Leishman, who's also on our technical team, he worked with Frank Chustra and us at Yorkton Securities for many years. Both like Mexico. It's early stage, but it's got lithium showings and some surface samples that are just as good as Nevada, if not better. And we're looking right now also to add to our footprint in Argentina. And we're hoping within the next month, we're going to have some more announcements there in terms of increasing our footprint in Argentina.
Yeah, Argentina. I just spoke with Joe Grasso, who is the president and CEO of Golden Arrow Resources, and that sounds like an incredibly fertile ground for all resources. I mean, not just lithium, not just gold, not just silver, but seems like there's a lot of various materials that are hiding under the ground, under the surface, that are useful to us humans up here on the surface.
Yeah, you good point, Rory. But also Argentina is being very pro exploration right now. You know, they really want companies come in and invest, and that's important. So there's no political issues, no jurisdictional issues, no permitting issues. It's quite a good place to work for entrepreneurs and good explorationists.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Mr. Grasso pointed out, was that it was that the government is not putting up a bunch of roadblocks, and that's always a positive. And Mr. Sidoo, if you don't mind, I'd like to look at the overall markets and see what's going on there. And the volatility in the resource and major indexes has been brutal as of late. Do you see these two as being connected, or is the resource sector just having a correction and the broader market seeing something more serious due to the stories like Brexit, Deutsche Bank, Commerce Bank, these other big banks seemingly being in a lot of trouble?
Well, Rory, with big news like you mentioned in Brexit and Deutsche Bank is always going to cause some uncertainty, as we know, in the markets. And markets hate uncertainty. They like to see the market going in one way, and that's up. You know, invariably, you've seen such a tremendous flow of money coming back into the resource sector and into speculative companies. And you're going to see a bit of correction. That's just natural. It happens in every bull market that I've ever seen. But when it comes to the resource sector specifically, there's been a lot of volatility. But the resource sectors often has these areas in a bull phases, while others are in bear phases. And you look at lithium right now, and I believe in this sector, lithium and gold and other precious metals, we're in a prolonged upswing. That I think is going to continue for long term. When you look at other rare elements like uranium, for example, it's having a terrible time, and I think that's probably going to stay there for a while until prices increase. It's really hard to generalize about the resource sector. My advice for investors is always do your due diligence for each industry, and where's the demand coming from? Is it sustainable? Where is supply coming from? How easy is it for producers to wrap up activity and so on? It's really by looking at each of these segments that the smart money makes decisions on what to get into and what to leave alone. And, you mentioned people like Eric Sprott and Rick Rule and my team, Dev Randawa, and smart investors. I mean, they're all in right now looking at the lithium space quite seriously. And I don't think this space is going to be an aberration, Rory. I think it's here for a long, long term. And the application for this rare element is just only going to increase. So this sector that we're in right now, we're focused on, I believe is going to be around for a long time. It's not going to suffer too much of a volatility.
I would agree with that. I mean, I think that lithium batteries are going to be with us for quite some time, and with the much bigger picture, like what is happening with Tesla and bringing those batteries to the power grid. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that could be a serious game changer for a long time and make the demand overall all the stronger. We had talked about your background and the fact that you were with the in the CFL. Can you tell us about your experiences with the Canadian Football League?
Well, it was actually a dream come true for me to play professional sports, and I was the first person of Indo-Canadian descent to play professional sports in specifically football. And it was a great time for me, but it was a real good learning experience for me, Rory, because football is the consummate team game. And if you look at my track record and follow my companies, I'm still working with the same teammates in my public companies that I was when I started, 20 years ago doing this. And I think that came from my background in sports and in football. And we were talking earlier about how the Tennessee Titans have had a tough time the last little while in the NFL, and it was directly related to and correlated to the losing seasons you had when Fisher left, and he's with the LA Rams now, and they're in first place in their division, and he was quite the leader. And I really believe you've got to have a captain and a leader. When I played in high school, when I played in college, when I played pro, I was voted the captain by my teammates because I included everybody, and everyone had their roles, and I encouraged everyone. And I do the same thing in my business. I've got my role is to bring the team together, build the asset base, and raise the capital. And the technical guy's role is to do their technical due diligence and come to me and tell me if the assets are good. And the geologist's job is to tell us where to drill. And the investment bankers are the ones that do the research. And that goes all back to sports. And when you're successful in sports, you bring that into business. And I've been able to translate those two into positive stuff in business. And I really take the team approach. And I just want to lastly say to your listeners that when you look at the sector and you look at the kind of people that are coming into the sector, not only Tesla and Elon Musk, but you look at Volkswagen, General Motors, and most recently Warren Buffett. Those people are smart money people. And I think the lithium market right now is just starting to be on the upswing. There's a lot of companies that have value out there that your listeners can look at, but I believe ours is probably one of the top management-driven companies that's going to bring value to people over the long term, and we're going to be able to raise the money and get to a level where we can actually produce the product. And,
sounds good to me.
That's the last football analogy I'm going to make, Rory, is we're going to take it from the 1 yard line. I think we're on the 20-yard line, our own 20, and we're going to take it to the other team's goal line and score in the next 4 to 5 years. And if everybody's patient with us, I think we'll do well for them.
And you'll find them on the web at AdvantageLithium.com. First down on the 20-yard line. Sounds good to me. And we've been speaking with David Sidoo, and he is the president and CEO of Advantage Lithium. And you can find them listed in the United States under the symbol AVLIF, and in Canada under the symbol AAL. David, I certainly appreciate all your time this afternoon, and I look forward to speaking with you in the not-too-distant future.
Thanks, Rory, and keep in touch, okay?
I'll sure do it. So have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Howdy, folks. Welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Monday, October the 3rd, and I have the very distinct honor and great pleasure of welcoming to the show for the first time the president and CEO of Advantage Lithium, Mr. David Sidoo, and he leads an award-winning mining company for a newly formed company, Advantage Lithium, which trades here in the U.S. under the symbol AV.
Rory, thanks a lot for having me on. I'm really excited about being on your program, and I've listened to a lot of your other shows, and they're quite informative for your audience. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And just before we started the show, we were talking about management. We were talking about football and coaches and how important management is to the overall success, whether it's a football team or whether it's a company. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't. LIF, and in Canada under AAL. I wanted to get him on our show because I've seen a few articles on Zero Hedge and SHTF Plan about the electric car boom facing a major headwind when it comes to the supplies for lithium. Elon Musk has stated that Tesla will soon consume all the annual lithium supply. And Warren Buffett, his electric car company, BYD, has stated the exact same thing. So all these electric vehicle companies and large tech giants fighting over supply, I wanted to learn where our audience can take advantage. David and his team are responsible for some of the biggest gains in the resource sector and are known to all the big insiders like Eric Sprott and Rick Rule. David, thank you for being on the Daily Coin. Matter. It's all driven by the management. And if you would, David, give us a little bit of your background as far as your management and